Welcome to Real Talk with Reginald D. I'm your host, Reginald D. On today's episode, we have Inna Segal. Inna's work is transforming how people understand healing at its deepest level. Inna is a pioneer in energy medicine and intuitive healer, and the best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body Work. Welcome to the show, Inna.
Thank you for having me so much.
Thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to be with me for a minute. Can you tell us about your childhood and where you grew up, and take us through your journey when you arrived in Australia?
So I was born in Belarus, which is Eastern Europe, next door to Poland. And I left when I was 9 years old. And we were on our way to the US, actually, to probably Chicago. It was between New York and Chicago because my parents had friends and family in those states. And while we were going through the immigration process in Italy, and we also left because my brother was really sick after the Chernobyl accident, which was not very far from where we lived. And my parents were told that he would die if we hadn't left, if we wouldn't leave. So it was very motivational for them to leave. And while we were going through this immigration experience in Italy, I just think I think destiny played a role, and we were told that there was a certain amount of people that would be allowed to go to America and the rest had to kind of figure it out. And we were not allowed to go. We weren't accepted. And so my parents had a very close friend who was living in Australia at the time, and they contacted him and said, well, this is what's happened. Could you sponsor us? Because it required money and sponsorship. And he did. He was willing to do it. And that's how we ended up in Australia, essentially. In terms of my own healing journey, I went through a lot of issues, from digestive issues to anxiety to psoriasis, some depression, a lot of back pain. And I started with exploring the medical way of doing everything, which wasn't really working for me. I would just feel like I suppress things and I get worse. And then I started to do alternative or explore alternative medicines because I had met my first long-term partner at the time, and he took me everywhere from naturopathy to kinesiology to chiropractic to rolfing, all sorts of things, that many modalities. Unfortunately, I was showing up to them in the exact same way that I was showing up to the doctor, which is, you know everything, I know nothing, just do it, fix me. I don't need to participate beside, showing up, being here in your room on the table, or taking the medicine that you tell me, whether it's natural or alternative. And my body wasn't having it. Let's just say it wasn't working with it. So then I ended up in this chiropractor's office in agony. I had seen him 3 times a week for about a year or more. And he basically said to me, your body's stuck. There's not much I can do for you because your body wants to be stuck. Go home. And on the way home, it was occurring to me a lot that he's talking about kind of language, like my mind and my body are disconnected. Then there's some language that we're just not understanding each other. And, I thought to myself, it's not like I want to be stuck. I just don't know what it fully means on, where, in what way, how do I do this? And I made this decision to go home and to essentially tune into my body. I was like, well, the only thing that I haven't tried is actually doing it myself. I've tried everything else. I've, gone to every person that I could imagine. And whilst at times I would get better, I would then revert back and, there would be an explosion in my body and I would start to feel really unwell again. And so I knew at that moment that the person that wasn't participating in it fully was me. And so when I got home, I can't say that I really knew what I was doing, but I also feel like that very often when we are pushed to the wall, there's a wisdom that comes out of us. And, maybe we've seen and experienced different things. And I'd gone to acting classes for many, many years where we did breath work, we did connection, we visualized, that's what you do. And we were very creative in our exploration. So I thought, you know what? Even though I don't know, there are things I do know. And I can start with what I know. And I can clearly place my hands on my back, which is hurting a lot. And I can breathe into it. And rather than running away from the pain, I can start to explore the pain. And as I was doing that, and counting backwards from 30, just to have some space from the negativity in my own mind, it occurred to me that what if I ask for extra help? What if I ask for divine help? Maybe it's there, maybe it's not available, but if I ask, I'll know. And so I did. And I said, if there is something divine out there, please help me now. And I felt this warmth move through my body, even though I was expecting nothing to happen. After that thought, another one came, and the thought was, I wonder what my body looks like. And a very strange thought, one I've never had before. And within moments, it felt like my body gave me access to it. And I could see my back. It started definitely from my back. That was the issue. And I could it was almost like an entry point into memory meets wisdom. So I can't say it was complete memory that I was seeing, but it was kind of like this very clear visual image of me coming to Australia, not knowing the language, being bullied, being very much ostracized, not being okay with myself, because I grew up being quite comfortable with me. And it was a big shock to my system to now I can't communicate. I'm being told that I don't belong here. And I actually feel like I don't belong in this country. This is very, very different to anything I'd experienced or seen in Eastern Europe or Europe, because I lived in Italy for almost 10 months before coming to Australia. So it was like, wow, all of this disconnection, discomfort, suppression. My parents were going through a lot of internal conflict and stress, and I absorbed it. And I think most children do when they're in an environment that doesn't feel quite safe or healthy, where the parents are fighting and they can't find a way to be loving with each other or communicate. And so I could, as I was acknowledging things and feeling through them, images were changing, and I was getting a little bit more of an insight about, oh, all of these things contributed. I'm not going to say it was one thing. It was, here's the different layers and levels of contribution to your health, including the fact that my grandparents had gone through the war and my grandmother lost most of her family, and how that affected my digestive system and everybody's digestive systems in the family. And so as I was kind of going through all this, I felt in the acknowledgement there was choice. And I felt and cried and went through the feelings that came up. And then I fell asleep. And the next morning, I realized that when I woke up, that my body was unwinding the whole night and about 70% of the pain was gone. And it wasn't like that was a completely new experience, but what was new about it is that I made it happen, right? As opposed to somebody else making it happen. And so my next question to myself was, okay, what does it mean to not go backwards and to hold this? Meaning that I could keep improving as opposed to what has been my experience, keep, going back into pain. And, secondly, can I improve my other conditions, and what else can I learn and understand? And so over the next several weeks, I would just write. I actually was studying to be a professional writer, journalist, fiction writer, whatever I thought I was going to do. I wanted to write. And so I was studying that at university, and I, so it was natural for me to just journal and write and start to, research and connect pieces together. I think that essentially, unless, as a writer, you're a researcher, whatever writing you do, you actually have to, put pieces together and write it together, bring it together, I should say. And I was looking at all the pieces of the puzzle, or trying to at least, and how do they fit in? How does all of this fit into my actual experience and condition? And so by the end of the 3 weeks, I didn't have back pain anymore. I never had it since. And this, we're talking 25 years ago now. I didn't have my psoriasis disappeared and it never came back. My anxiety and depression at the time that I was going through went right down to almost nothing. And the digestive system took a long time to work on, I'm going to say.
Right, exactly. Because you look at it like this, like you were saying, a lot of times your mind and your body has to connect. You know, your mind is saying one thing and your body is saying something else. It's hard for it to all come together. And a lot of times in life, I'll tell people it's kind of like mind over matter. You just got to think it through and do the things that you think that, because once you understand, I feel like, once you understand, you get your mind in a place that, in a good place. I think it helps with a lot of the illnesses. I hear a lot of stress brings on all these other illnesses, and then like anxiety, once you get your mind in the right place, then anxiety, you can pretty much handle that at the end of the day. So, you say that illness is rarely just physical. In your experience, what deeper layers are often being overlooked?
Well, I feel like in a medical, very materialistic society, pretty much everything is being overlooked. I mean, if you look up any disease, any disorder, it's likely to show up, and we ask, where did it start? What's it from? Why? And we ask medicine this, they'll usually say, we don't know. And to me, that's just not good enough. That just doesn't make any sense. How can you not know? How can you treat something that you don't know? So, like, how can we get healthy if you're treating it, but you have no idea how it actually came about? And so to me, from the beginning, of my real like awakening and exploration, it was like, well, who are we? What layers do we have? And you've mentioned your mind, for instance. So I think it does a lot of the time start with your mind. If we were to really look at any health condition, including accidents, any emotional condition, we'd have to start to go back to the beginning of what was my perspective? What is my perspective? And I've asked this question, let's say, because I know people say, well, accidents don't come into this. And it's like, really? Well, let's look at the fact of every person, I'm going to say, that I've spoken to. And this may not be the case for 100% because nothing is in life, but every person that I ever spoken to had an accident. And my question was, what were you thinking or feeling or experiencing before this accident? Were you clear? Were you in your body? Were you grounded? Were you fully like feeling good? Or were you confused, not quite there, chaotic, thinking of a million different things, worrying, stressing, anxious? And I've never had a person say I was really fully connected, clear, everything was great. They usually said yes, within that week or month, there was a lot going on. So to me, it's like nothing in medicine looks at your life story, trauma. We're at the beginning of this. Again, we can generalize and say stress, but like, what is this stress from? Where did it come from? What caused it? How it's not the stress itself, because there's lots of people that thrive in stress. It's how did that stress affect you in a way that you changed your perspective to something that hurts you, and there's a part of you that stopped developing and growing? That's the question, which then allowed another aspect of you to take over, and usually not the good one, not the healthy aspect, which is, again, if we look at anxiety, for instance, and if we could break it down from that perspective of we have thinking, right? Most people would agree. We have a thinking area in our body. We have a feeling area. And most of us would say it's the heart or the solar plexus. We've gut feelings in our language. We feel through our heart. I don't think that this is anything woo-woo, me saying that. And then we have the will, which is around our legs, around our kind of like, let's call it hip area, where when we want to do something, we walk, we do it, right? We take action. We're like, okay, thinking, feeling, will, right? Doing. So when somebody has anxiety or depression, very often it's their feelings that actually take over the thinking and the will, because the thinking has become really, really focused on feeding negative, deeply difficult emotions. And then we act on it. And so the thinking is the part of us that must be step one in most things, right? And thinking is understanding. I need to understand myself. I need to understand what caused it. And people sometimes will say, or often, yeah, but it's not my fault if somebody did something to me. How am I meant to remember it? And I have, lots of answers to that. Firstly, this is never about fault finding. Healing, as opposed to curing, is about going, let me recognize how I went from a healthy perspective to an unhealthy one. How do I, and it became stuck the same way as my own body became stuck. And how do we turn that around so that we start to have a much healthier perspective, which then means we can work with our emotions, we can work with our will, we can transform a whole experience internally of why something is happening or happened to us. And I don't want to take away from the fact that I also believe in healthy eating. I believe that we're surrounded by chemicals and we need to detox and cleanse and be aware of things, and we need to sleep better. We need to meditate and all of these different things that make you a healthier person. But essentially, we're talking about diseases. What's not being looked at is literally anything in the medical profession besides calling something a name and giving you medication for it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think it's much deeper than that. Much deeper than that. So, your book is titled The Secret Language of Your Body. Can you tell us about your book and what does that phrase really mean? And how can someone begin to listen to what their body is trying to communicate?
So my book is really about inviting people to understand themselves. I'm going to say to recognize that your life and everything that happens in your life deeply, deeply affects your body. And that your body is kind of like, even if we look at the nervous system, is the organism that is connecting and checking for safety, checking for, is this healthy for me or not healthy? Is this okay? Should I enter into this environment? Should I not? And that's why so many people have nervous system dysregulation, because the nervous system is like what's meant to teach you and give you information. And because we are so dysregulated, we're so confused. And for me, it's about how do we bring you back, each person back to their own body wisdom. And that if you have pain in your throat, you would ask the question yourself, not run to the doctor immediately, but the question would be, what's my throat about? What does it do? Oh, I use it to communicate and to speak to people. Why do I have pain in my throat? Oh, I have it because somewhere in my life, I am holding back and I'm afraid of speaking. I'm afraid of expressing something. Well, let's unpack that. Who is it with? Is it to do with relationships? Is it to do with patterns, that I've seen other people have in my family? Is it to do with childhood? I mean, there's a potential deep exploration here. If we're looking at and we go, I have heart disease. How many people have heart disease at the moment? It's absolute insanity. What is the heart about? Well, let's look at it. Again, it's not woo-woo to say heart is about intimacy. We all say that my heart is in this relationship, or, that the heart is also in connection to our destiny. or what we feel our destinies, we go, I love this. Why do I love this and they don't? Oh, it's in my heart. So my heart must have some kind of wisdom. Or we say, follow your heart. Well, what are we following then, unless we already realize that there is this wisdom in the heart? So again, if people start to be educated, and again, we're talking basic, education that, somebody who's 10 years old can understand. My heart is my feeling center. It's about relationships. It's where I feel love or rejection, hurt and fear, or joy and pleasure a lot of the time, in terms of connecting with other people. So if my heart is breaking down, sure, I may need to change my diet. I'm all for it. Eat healthy, right? But actually, it's a little bit deeper than that. My heart is about my relationships, including one with myself. So if it's showing me something, should I run to the doctor and suppress it, or should I ask some questions around it? And again, I'm not saying for people never to go to the doctor. Like, if you need it, you need it. And if you can't, work with your own body, I totally get it. And if you're in pain, you may need it. But what I am saying to people is, whether you go to the doctor or not, there's still questions that you need to ask your body, and that every part has wisdom, and that every part is asking you to pay attention to your life. How would we know if we're living our life in alignment or not, if we didn't have feelings, if we didn't have our bodies, telling us, oh, this doesn't feel good? Like pain in the neck. We already know, we say this, oh, this person's a real pain in the neck, right? So we know it's relationship related. And that's exactly what I did with my book. I went, I'm going to break things down, right, for people. I'm going to start with this section of kind of aspects of ourselves. Do we have visual, auditory, touch, kinesthetic, right? We have all these different aspects of ourselves. What if we use those aspects to, one, tune into our bodies, ask questions, discover things in terms of our mind so we could understand, and then change them? And, I wrote about why I put together particular structures, let's say of processes, to help people to change, and why I think that even though I've written a guide, you should start with asking your own body questions before you go to all the sections where I've written about it. But of course, most people skip those sections. That section, because we skip steps in our lives all the time. We would just want the answer, the result, and so the ideal scenario is people actually read it from the beginning. And then I wrote about a section on all the body parts like I'm speaking about right now, because I want people to understand basic universal wisdom, right? That every part of the body has a function. It does something, right? It's not there for no reason. It's not like we don't have a body that is just like made up of things that are necessary, even if medicine tells us at times, oh, don't worry, you can take this part out and it doesn't do much. That's not the truth. So to me, it's illogical to have things in the body that you don't need, except maybe wisdom teeth, or something like that. But essentially, there's, every part of the body is giving us something, some wisdom, some insight, because it has a function. And what I was looking at is, if we understood the function, maybe we would understand how it works in terms of our actual lifestyle and life and our connections with other people, and the fact that we are so, so influenced by relationships. Our health is very often a reflection of who's been around us and who we've been around, and how we communicate with them and what happened. And when we break the body down, and I've spent 25 years on it, so medical doctors have their 7-year foundation, and then, they specialize. Like, I still think that I know not that much compared to what there is to know, because the body is so beautifully deep and complex. It tells us timelines. So every organ and its development is connected to a timeline in your life that, if you understood and really studied it, could actually explain to you when it's most likely started, because that organ was in its state of development. And people think, no, everything develops in the womb. Come on. Like, seriously, how would we grow even? Whereas, what I look at is at least the first 21, years of development, and really longer, and how they're stored in different parts of a body, really more like 28, and how we then recycle and go through things that have happened in, let's say, those 28 years. And again, I'm being very general because it's a lot more than that. But most of the issues are, there that show up, that get seeded earlier on, and then they show up later in life in, bigger and bigger ways. Unless, and I always say this, unless you take a lot of toxins in, including poisonous substances, which, have labels on them that says, if you take this, these are the side effects of it. So, then things become a lot faster than they would be through just life experience. But we need to look at everything when we're looking at healing. And that's essentially what I tried to do in my book. I was like, here's a section on understanding. Here's a section on, here's what all the parts of the body are there to teach you based on their functionality. And also all the stuff that I've learned that is hidden, and you've got to study to learn it. And then I looked at diseases and I was like, well, this is what causes your body to break down in this way. And it was absolutely based on the fact that after I healed myself and was able to see into my back, I could see into other people, and, the same way that I did with myself. And so I would take a lot of notes. And sometimes people even say to me, there are things missing in the book. There's diseases missing. And it's like, yes, they're missing because I wasn't working with those people. I didn't have those, like clients. And so I didn't put things in that I knew nothing about. I put things in that was very obvious and clear to me from the people that I was seeing at the time, and that over and over again. And that made complete logical sense to me. And I didn't look at things which didn't make sense to me at the time. And the book is big enough, from just those stuff. And, so I did that. And then I looked at a section around emotions, because I actually understood that most people are uncomfortable with emotions. They're hazy. They would rather have their teeth pulled than have to feel the emotions, especially things that are difficult, like grief and sadness and rejection and shame. No one wants to feel those emotions. And so they suppress them. And I was like, well, I want people to also understand how emotions get created and how we can start to work with them rather than trying to push them away. How do we gain wisdom from them and start to see them as, this is one of the ways my inner system talks to me. I feel good or I feel bad, right? I feel happy or I feel sad. Like that, there's something to it. And that we shouldn't just run to the doctor and go, I have bad feelings. I don't like these feelings. Let's ignore them, numb them, push them away, because I only want good feelings, which is what our society has become in lots of ways. It's like, I only want to feel one way. I only want to feel good. But it's like, if you don't have grief, you'll never have compassion. You'll never go deep enough. You'll never connect to yourself enough, right? You'll just stay a surface-based person that only wants things their own way. If you don't, like, there's so many reasons for these challenging emotions. And people need to understand that. The same with anger. A lot of men experience anger and they don't know what to do with it because they're told, men, anger, bad. You're bad if you have anger. And it's like, well, if men don't experience anger, they'll experience depression. It's one or the other, or both, right? Because anger is part of, actually, one, there's layers to it, but it's also a way of knowing if I need to protect somebody, right? If I need to look after somebody, including myself. like we've had this from the beginning of man. It's like where we were, hunters and gatherers, so to speak. But because people are terrified of anything that is not compartmentalized, basically like, oh, this is safe, this is okay. We just go, don't like this, push away, don't like this. And we wonder why we have so much mental illness. Like it's insane the amount of mental illness that is there because we don't understand and don't want to understand emotions in that way and the thoughts that feed those emotions and what actually happened. And then, so I wrote about this and then I wrote about the systems of the body and together what they're actually telling us and how we can learn from them. And essentially, where I could, which is with all the parts of the body, I put in processes that give people a structure to ask questions, to explore, to use their own body through, everything from breath, pressure points, movement, visualization, whatever abilities I felt like we naturally have that we can do on our own. And the amounts of people that have told me that they've used my book to heal themselves is literally incredibly insane. I had no clue when I wrote it that this would be, the case, including countless people who've gone through cancer, who've come to me and said, I would not be alive right now if I did not have your book. If I had your book with me in the hospital. And this is, my partner went to a homeopath not that long ago and she said, oh my God, I have her book. It saved my life from, I had cancer. Telling me he went to a hotel the other day because he was doing something in a different city to me. And the minute he walked in and the woman looked at his details and she said, oh, do you know Inna? And he's like, yeah, she's my partner. And she said, oh, I love her book. I've used it. It's my Bible. I have it, next to me. And it's that thing of when people finally create a relationship with themselves, which is what my work is really about, then they have choice. I'm going to say they have choice to start to make changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that you have to have a relationship with yourself first and understand yourself or to be able to move forward. So, Ina, after decades of healing work, what have you learned about the relationship between self compassion, timing, and lasting transformation?
I love this question. I think self-compassion is daily because I think that as much as we may know what's good and right and so on, we're a work in progress as opposed to what we want to be, which is perfection. And as my partner always says, perfection is the enemy of creation. It's like we constantly need to have self-compassion for ourselves and the fact that even if we think we've made the right decision, we still have challenges that show up. And those challenges might be things we know and aware of, or these challenges may come from, the side, so to speak. And we're like, oh my God, I've just been taken aback and I've reverted back to behaving or being how I don't want to be and how I don't like being. And now I've got to forgive myself. I actually think forgiveness is not really about other people. I think forgiveness is about you, forgiving yourself. And this is where the compassion lies. And in terms of our journey, did I answer the full question? Because I know there was several parts.
Yeah, and then like lasting transformation. Once you transform yourself, you got to sustain it.
Well, exactly. And I think that when people think again, lasting, they think, oh, I've done it a few times. It should be lasting now because I understand. As I used to have these people messaging me at the beginning constantly and saying, I've done the processes from the book twice and I don't see a result. And I was like, where did I write? Can you show me the section in the book where I said to do it twice and that's enough? It's like lasting, lasting actually means that you have now your whole body being system now works in a way where a challenge, arises and you deal with it in the very best way possible because your nervous system's aligned, you're aligned, you know you have the tools to deal with it. And that's what's lasting is a lifestyle. It's how you live. It's not lasting because you've done it 5 times and now you don't have to worry about it ever again. And I think that, if we can come back for a minute to weaknesses in the body that don't just go quickly, right? Like, my digestive system, I still have to be constantly conscious of it. I cannot drink milk without having a result, like a response from my body. No matter how much I've done on it, it's like, no, this is not healthy for you. This is not good. And for me, it's like, okay, so on a daily basis, I need to be aware of 2 things. One, what I put into my mouth, it's not lasting. It's like lasting means I have to be conscious of it. And number 2, what's happening in my life today that I may need to learn from and process because that's what digestive system is about. So lasting change is that. It's not I've done it and I never have to look at it again.
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head. Everything you do in success, your life, your body, or whatever you're trying to transform, it's a lifestyle. It's not something you can do for 5 days and stop and pick it up, 6 months later. It'll never transform. It'll never transform. So, yeah, you hit it right on the head. So, if you could leave our listeners with one message about their body, their pain, and their potential to heal, what do you most want them to understand today?
You've got to make an effort. That it's not going to happen with you wanting someone else to do it for you. Because at the end of the day, I say this to people, I can tune into you, I can tell you all the things that are going on and why. And that could be very helpful because it can pinpoint things in terms of what to do. But I will never, ever know you or understand you or understand how you fully experience something inside of yourself. Only you can. Thus, whatever I do to help you will not hold unless you do it, right? Unless you're the one who's doing it. And that's why, up for the first 10 years of me knowing this, I made a lot of one-on-one work and a little bit of teaching. And then I just had this real depth of realization that, if I'm to make a difference, and I do want to, and I feel that that's part of my destiny to make a difference, then I cannot just teach, and help people one-on-one. I have to, for me, and again, everyone's destiny is different, I have to actually empower people to heal themselves. And so from writing my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, to essentially, and many others, books and other things that I've written and done, to teaching, that's been my focus. And for those people who go, this is interesting and curious, I do want to understand more about what Inna does, I would say step 1 is making the decision that you're worthy to take the time to learn and discover. Without it, you will never ever fully heal or hold it because it will always be this thing. I've got to run to somebody else. Oh, my back's out. Oh, my knee hurts. Oh, they know. It's like, yes, you can get help, but no one can do it like you. And this is why, Reginald, I decided at this point, and it may change because, it's been quite an investment into doing this. I created several masterclasses and they're kind of like mini workshops. And I've decided to give them to people for free because I actually just want to take the excuse out of it. And it's a beginning of exploring, including with my own guidance, where I guide you through several processes of whether the masterclass to do with the secret language of your body, of how to awaken the body, because you can't actually even get into the body without awakening it, without moving it. And so I go through that process. And then, how do we connect and listen to the body? But then there are people who are more, who know this and are advanced on that path, and they go, you know what? I want to go deeper. I want to understand archetypes and emotions in a deeper way, and timelines, and how my body really works from, the energetic perspective. And I have a masterclass on this. And then I have one on the soul journey and purpose and what that means, and how so many of us have lost our own capacity to feel and know and build that purpose. And, then we have all sorts of challenges around ourselves from the perspective of childhood, and the fact that our childhood creates a foundation for who we become as people. And there are many stages of development that people have no idea about, that actually causes you to become stuck and have a lot of struggle in your life. And so again, I go through those types of things as well. And they're not all in one. I'm going to say there's variety, on my website, innasegal.com, you have all the opportunity to explore. But unless you make a decision and say, I'm worth it, I need to learn, I need to know why I have what I have, instead of being okay with the answer of we don't know and just take medication that potentially has side effects of death, then I really, encourage people to go, I'm going to learn about it through thinking. I'm going to feel into it as I go through these masterclasses, and then I'm going to take action of changing my life.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, when you cherish something, you'll put more energy into it. It's just like a vehicle. Some guys love that certain car. They're going to make sure it's okay. They're going to make sure it was taken care of, or anything like that. So that's very true. I think it all starts with the mind. And I think what you're doing is great work. Great work. So, Inna, lastly, how can my listeners follow you or purchase your books?
So, in terms of books, because people are everywhere, firstly, I'm going to encourage you to go to your bookshop, because we are at a time where bookshops are dying out. And, I really, really want people to support their local bookshops. And all you have to do is go there and ask them to order it. That's the ideal way, because then, everyone gets supported, because authors rely on bookshops, right? Alternatively, you can find it online. It's everywhere. And I know it's easier, but it's wherever you're at. I'm going to say I have more than one book. Again, I really encourage you to Google or look me up and see all the different books that I've written. And I'm working on a new one at present. But a lot can be found on my website, which is, again, Inna Segal, INNASEGAL.com.
There you have it. Inna Segal, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it today. Man, you have
Thank you
given me a
so
lot of insight. Now I got to go start searching some stuff. No, it's
I'm
good.
glad.
Actually, yeah, it's good. It's really good. It's really good. So I really thank you for taking the time out. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be impactful to the people who listen to this. I really, really am grateful for the work you do and helping people become who they need to be, or who they should be, through their own power and through their own energy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Real Talk with Reginald D. If you enjoy listening to Real Talk with Reginald D, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.